I'd like to welcome everyone to the afternoon of the Board of County Commissioners meeting. The time is approximately 2 p.m. We had a late start in the afternoon because we went a little bit longer than normal in the morning. So we'll continue where we left off on the morning schedule. We left off, we didn't get to item number 32, so we'll start the afternoon at item number 32.
Yes. Good afternoon. Joy Giles, Senior Planner for the Planning and Development Division. This request is for consideration of the Myrtle Street Estates Final Development Plan located on the north side of Myrtle Street, approximately a quarter mile west of, Sanford Avenue. The applicant proposes to develop a single-family residential subdivision on 19.59 acres with a maximum of 2 dwelling units per net buildable acre for 36 lots with a minimum lot size of 6,600 square feet. The subject site has a suburban estates future land use with A1 zoning, which permits a maximum density of 1 unit per net buildable acre with a minimum lot size of 1 acre. However, this site is located within the Urban Conservation Village Design Overlay, which allows a maximum of 2 units per net buildable acre when developed under a cluster design. Pardon me. Bear with me 1 second.
Got it right.
I'm losing my voice a little bit. Sorry about that. The intent of the Urban Conservation Village Design Overlay is to promote a much smaller lot size in order to preserve a much larger open space greenway for the benefit of the residents. The overlay cluster design criteria includes a 15-foot wide perimeter buffer with a 10-foot buffer adjacent to Myrtle Street. All structures must maintain a perimeter setback of no less than 35 feet. The development must connect to public utilities, and 50% of the net buildable acreage, exclusive of floodplain and wetlands, must be preserved in a open space greenway tract, pardon me, and preserved under a conservation easement. There's also detailed requirements for stormwater, which must be demonstrated at final engineering. Staff has determined that the proposed final development plan meets all the requirements of the overlay. On December 14th, 2021, the Board of County Commissioners approved the Myrtle Street Estates preliminary development plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the final development plan as requested.
Thank you. Is the applicant here who would like to make a presentation?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Zach Miller at 8241 Via Bonita Street in Sanford. We worked closely with staff, Joy and Rebecca specifically, to kind of go through a couple of iterations of the design on this and came to what I feel is a pretty good layout, or not a very good layout actually. And we are happy with staff's recommendations and here for any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll get back to you if there's any questions.
Perfect.
Before we go to the commissioners, do we have any written requests?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, close public input. Well, now, this is a District 2 item. Direction from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Miller, I want to thank you very much for working with our staff, putting together this cluster plan. I think this is really going to set the trend moving forward through this area of giving, that open area and that open space. And as we see more and more people desiring and needing housing and not necessarily wanting large acreage to maintain and take care of. So I appreciate you considering that plan, and thank you very much. With that, I'll move a motion to approve the Myrtle Street Estates Final Development Plan Developers Commitment Agreement for 36 lots on 19.59 acres zoned Ag 1, located on the north side of Myrtle Street, approximately a quarter mile west of South Sanford Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion, second discussion for the motion. Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, staff. We'll now move on to item number 33, which is under the county manager and staff briefings. We have the American Rescue Plan Act. Mr. Abel?
I will turn it over to Tricia.
Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. We're getting the presentation up for you in just a moment. But this is our quarterly ARPA update, although I think for the time being, we'll probably do them every other month or so, depending on what we have going on. So this is the first update that you've had since November 9th. And the purpose of today's update is really to talk about where we are in terms of our allocations, where the projects are that have been approved by this board, or those will be coming forward to you over the next several meetings, and also then recommendations from staff in terms of moving forward over the next 6 weeks. So as you know, Seminole County was awarded $91.6 million in ARPA funds. The first payment was received in June 2021, and based on Treasury guidance, we anticipate the second payment arriving in about a year later, June 2022. Currently, the county's program has been operating under the interim final rule, which was issued in May 2021. And on January 6th of this year, U.S. Treasury issued the final rule, which focuses on state and local recovery programs. The final rule governs spending guidelines for the ARPA program and reflects feedback submitted by local governments throughout the country. It is 500 pages in length and is effective on April 1st, 2022. Staff and the legal team have been and continue to review the final rule to understand what changes may impact current programs that you've approved or future funding requests. As you know, ARPA is broken down essentially into 4 funding categories for state and local recovery funds, the first being public health initiatives. This board allocated $11 million toward public health initiatives last summer, first being the Sheriff's Office Holistic Behavioral Health Program, to which we allocated $9 million. That contract was approved by the board at the December 14th, 2021 BCC meeting. We have also, we meaning the board, has allocated $1 million towards mental health initiatives and another $1 million towards community health and paramedicine programs. With respect to paramedicine, that program did start last week. We began seeing patients, so very exciting. The community health and mental health pieces, it's important to know that Community Services is in the process of interviewing a program manager position who will have knowledge related to mental health and community health programs. We really would like to get that individual on board to help us put together recommendations to you on how those dollars can best be spent so that we can see a strong return on investment and also partner with community groups, including the Sheriff's program, as well as our hospital partners. Advent Health has a behavioral program they're working on, and South Seminole Hospital, of course, is the only inpatient behavioral health facility in the county. So as Allison and her team consider candidates for this position, I'd like to get it on your radar so you know we like that individual to help us craft a plan as we're putting together funding recommendations for mental health and community health. The next category for funding is addressing the negative impacts of COVID-19, and $19 million has been allocated to that program. It includes our 2 large grant programs, individual assistance and small business assistance. Currently, $4 million in ARPA funds have been allocated toward individual assistance. This is for rent, mortgage, and utility relief. You'll see as of yesterday, $143,000 has been awarded in grants. The ERAP 1 program, which focuses on rental assistance, closed last fall. We awarded nearly $13 million for ERAP 1. ERAP 2, which opened shortly after ERAP 1, is we've awarded about $448,000. Individual assistance has been moving slowly for two primary reasons. Firstly, the community really has been saturated in funding opportunities, ERAP 1 being a good example. So folks who have already received CARES funding, ERAP funding, they're not able to get a third grant under individual assistance. Additionally, up until recently, cities were not participating in the individual assistance program. Now that cities are coming on board as part of our county-wide programs, we will see an uptick in those grants that are awarded because residents that live within cities that are participating will apply. But staff does believe there is an opportunity here to potentially reallocate some of the individual assistance funds in the near future to other programs that may need additional funding. With respect to small business, as you may recall, $2 million has been allocated out of our COVID relief sub-fund. So these are not ARPA dollars, they are COVID relief dollars, and out of that $2,245,000 has been awarded in small business grants, again, moving very slowly. We have another $1.5 million in ARPA funds allocated once the $2 million is exhausted. But staff does believe we may have an opportunity here, similar to individual assistance, to reallocate those funds to other areas. Let me note that both of these programs will be at about 6 months in operation as of our first meeting in March, and that matters when I get to some of my recommendations. Again, as part of this overall funding group, we have $400,000 for not-for-profit assistance. These are small not-for-profit grants, about $25,000 each. Staff has reviewed the applications that came in last November and has recommended 16 not-for-profits for funding. So when I get to my recommendations, I'll talk a little bit more about that and next steps with respect to not-for-profit. We also have a scope that we received from Seminole State College's Center for Small Business Development for $350,000 in funding. I've reviewed the scope and submitted it to legal for their feedback and thoughts, but hopefully we can get that agreement drafted and on a board agenda in the next 2 meetings or so, once Seminole State, of course, reviews the agreement. With respect to Seminole State Workforce Training, which is $1 million, we are still working with them on that scope, and hopefully we'll have that ironed out in the month of February. And finally, I'm working with the airport on the tourism incentive and have asked them to prepare a scope on how they intend to hopefully use those dollars. And it's important to mention again the final rule language. This is one of the things I called Rajesh and said, please help me. In fact, I put in a legal work request. We were just talking about it. Help me understand how we can use these dollars specific for airports. Can we use them to market the airport? Can we use them as an incentive and so forth? So that's something we are working on now that the new language has been released. As you may recall, we have a tourism lodging incentive program. This is for our hoteliers to utilize dollars specific primarily to COVID efforts, plexiglass, PPE, and so forth. We have 8 hotels that have participated. Our 4 full-service hotels are all participating, and then 4 of our select service. We closed that program at the end of December. So it is our recommendation to reallocate the remaining $240,000 of that program. Now, these programs are on a reimbursement basis, but these dollars would not be allocated toward a hotel. Homelessness diversion is also part of this category. $3.65 million has been allocated by the board. $2.85 of that has been included in the Rescue Outreach Mission Agreement, which was approved by the board at the December 14th meeting. We also have $2 million designated towards affordable housing efforts and $3 million designated toward community facilities. And finally, in this category, community recreation, $2 million. These are our parks projects. A little more specific here, purchase orders have been issued for the playground surfacing at Sunland Park and the fence at Lake Mills Park, and work is being scheduled. The work order for Midway Trails project consultant to begin the master plan process has been approved, so the kickoff should be in the upcoming weeks. Our third category is infrastructure. $14.7 million has been allocated primarily to 2 programs. Midway Stormwater Project at $10 million, and the consultant for this project was approved by the board at the January 11th, 2022 board meeting. We are having ongoing discussions with property owners through Ed Barfield, who's a real estate consultant, regarding property for retention ponds, as well as working with Seminole County Public Schools on property needed for retention ponds as well. And of course, the broadband study and infrastructure project, the consultant was approved at the board meeting in December, and the kickoff meeting is scheduled for that study later this week. Finally, our last category is budget stabilization, technology infrastructure, and program administration, the largest number of $46.2 million. The Technology Infrastructure Modernization Project, we are finalizing the website RFP to hire a consultant to assist with that effort. We have a consulting agreement executed to support technology transformation efforts, as well as bringing some insourcing, some services in-house. Program administration, that's really the Ernst & Young contract, as well as some of the potential salaries. You have some staff members who are all ARPA all the time, so there are opportunities to potentially pay a portion of their salary out of ARPA funds. And finally, budget stabilization for general government services at $41.5 million. 6 of our 7 cities have expressed interest in participating in countywide programs. You may recall the county and the cities began working together last summer and coming up with a number of programs that would benefit the county as a whole, specifically the Sheriff's Behavioral Health Initiative, as well as other mental health partnerships, individual assistance and not-for-profit assistance programs, the Seminole State College Workforce Development Program, homelessness, and broadband. In our briefings, we talked a lot about how valuable it is to have the cities participate, not only because we want to demonstrate that partnership, but also it furthers our ability to allocate funds to some of the ARPA programs. Currently, 2 cities have formally executed their agreements, Altamont and Sanford, and we'll be bringing the Sanford contract to the BCC in February. I am ironing out language with Castleberry, Longwood, and Oviedo, and Winter Springs has expressed an interest in participating in broadband, but hasn't finalized if they're going to participate in anything else. That's kind of where we are with the cities. So one really important note I want to make: as we receive money in 2 tranches, so does the cities. The cities' monies come through the state. So we hope to receive our 2nd tranche in June. The cities' monies will probably come later because it will come through the state. Some of the cities are going to pay us out of their 1st tranche entirely, and some of them are going to pay out of both. So though we are hopeful that there will be no issue receiving those monies, there are no guarantees. So we just kind of have to keep that in the back of our head in the event that for some reason the cities did not receive their 2nd tranche of money, but they have been very positive. So hopefully there'll be no concerns there. We have received $5.5 million in additional requests. They primarily focus on homelessness, mental health, and other not-for-profit requests. These requests are those that are not currently allocated for, and I've gotten a lot of questions about them. They came in on January 7th, and my team has looked through them, but most of them, if not all, require follow-up questions. Many of them request new positions, which is not an issue per se in the ARPA criteria. We just want to understand how these not-for-profits intend to continue with programs once the ARPA money isn't there, if they're planning on creating positions. And some of them, I'm sure, have some very good feedback on that. So right now, we're working to follow up with them to ask some clarifying questions before we bring recommendations to you for these particular groups. So regarding recommendations and next steps, staff, and in this instance, talking to community services team, we would really like to proceed with awarding the 16 not-for-profits that are receiving $25,000 grants totaling $400,000. They were approved, I believe, late November, early December. They've been very patient. We'd like to proceed with those requests. If any of those not-for-profits have also applied for a larger grant, it would be my recommendation that we just back this $25,000 out of their larger request. I think there's only one circumstance where that is the case. I'd like to get all the remaining city agreements executed to this board by the end of February, or first meeting in March, understanding that they do have to go to their city commissions first. Again, reminding you that community services employing community health program manager, we'd like that person to be on board to kind of help us with the strategy and recommendations in terms of community health and mental health initiatives. We'd like to reallocate the $1.5 in small business monies that are specific to ARPA, as well as the $240,000 lodging incentive that will not be used to other programs. I'm not going to recommend what programs yet, but we do believe we're safe to reallocate those. And we do believe that we can come back to you at the first meeting in March and let you know if there are other opportunities for reallocation. And I feel confident that there'll be at least one. So, based on all of our conversations, it seems appropriate to recommend the next ARPA update, which would include recommendations for reallocation and additional funding at the March 8th Board of County Commissioners meeting. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Before we go to the board, I'd like to see if there's anyone in the community that'd like to speak. We have any written requests, Shani?
We have one request from Emery Green.
Okay. Mr. Green, when you come to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes.
Emery Green, Executive Director of the Midway Coalition. Good morning.
Address, please.
To the chair.
Your address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Personal address, 2240 Church Street, Sanford, Florida. I have a couple cleanup things I want to bring attention to. First off, congrats to Clerk Malloy and his team on their recent award. Congrats to Commissioner Lockhart on your distinguished honor. And thank you to Commissioner Constantine for your leadership with Charity Challenge, and our team of volunteers had an amazing time at the event. So to all of your accomplishments, thank you for all you do and have done. With regard to the ARPA funds, the Midway community is very excited about the leadership of this board. Under the leadership of then Chairman Constantine, with all of you voting unanimously to support the historic Midway Canaan City, to put us back on track to establish a very sound foundation. We greatly appreciate that. From the extension of our board of directors, I can say with confidence, we are on a pathway right now to truly level the playing field. And we're excited about where we are. We're excited about the direction we're going in. And we look forward to continuing to work with all of you to ensure that historic Midway Canaan City is preserved for years to come. To the Leisure Services Director, Mr. Durr, we look forward to working with you on the Midway Trail to establish some amazing opportunities for green space for our families. Not only that, but also the stormwater. We all know how large of a project that is. I want to reiterate that we are committed to ensuring that we have no hurdles or obstacles in the way. We are strategically aligning ourselves with our residents, with new residents that are now moving into the area, and ensuring that they are up to date, engaged, and we are ready to put shovels in the ground to get this project finished, so that we can ensure that everyone, including all of you, have confidence in the monies that have been allocated specifically for this project. And last but not least, Attorney Applegate, I was really excited to hear about the Affordable Housing Initiative that you talked about in the last community meeting, in the last County Commission meeting. The Midway Coalition is super excited, as well as some of our stakeholders, about being a part of that forum. As you know, we have business owners in Midway Canaan City that are provide affordable housing for well over 100 individuals living in Seminole County. We feel like we can help be a solution to that problem, and anything we can do to bring to the table to ensure that communities like Indian, Mound, and historic Midway Canaan City can show and lead the way for this great county to help with affordable housing and to ensure that we all serve the communities to the best that we can for all to see. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other written requests. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to address the board on this topic? If you could, come down to the podium. Please fill out the appropriate paperwork after you speak. And if you are going to address the board, please fill out a speaker's form.
Thank you. My name is Joe Gallagher, 1015 Terry Drive, Altamont Springs, Florida, 32714. First off, thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners for giving me a couple minutes to talk. I'd say, start off by also recognizing Commissioner Lockhart for your excellent work that you did at the state, being recognized by the Association of Florida Colleges. I think that just goes to show your commitment to the youth and the children that are in this area, not only in the college level, but also what you've done with the school board. So thank you. And that's really why I'm here today, is that the pandemic over the last couple of years, if you look at one segment of the population that has hit worse than any other, it's been our students. And you can go, please go to the schools and talk to the kids. Find out where they're at, how they feel. And they feel like in a lot of cases that their voice is not being heard, that they have nobody to talk to, and they feel like the last couple of years have been that they've been lost. So when you look at what we need to do from a mental health standpoint, and for those that you don't know, I represent Allie's Hope Foundation. So when I talk about programs and impacting the kids, we're trying to really make an impact to talk to the kids about mental health, finding them the right solutions that we can offer them when they when they feel they have nowhere else to go. And so, I ask you, as you consider everything that you're doing with the ARPA dollars, to please keep in mind that these kids, for some of them, have not experienced ninth grade the way that you and I did, never went to the juniors and seniors, have not experienced a senior prom like you and I did, that first graders are not really getting to make those true relationships from the get-go. So there's going to be issues that we have to deal with for a long period of time. And when we look at the segment that is being impacted right now that we might be able to make an impact on, it's those 32,000 kids that are in high school and middle school. So think about what we can do to help those as we create programs and care for those children. So thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you for what you do, Mr. Gill.
Anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak to the board before I close public input? Public input's now closed. Board questions and comments? Commissioner Constantine.
Just a couple of questions, Trish. In our conversations yesterday, when you were talking about, and you said that we needed to emphasize on, in this ARPA dollars, mental health and homelessness, you also indicated that human trafficking would be part and parcel of that. Is that correct?
From what I understand, yes, human trafficking could be, because it is one of those areas that has been impacted by the pandemic.
Thank you. And the second thing is that when on these, and these are all great organizations that you're looking at the $400,000, I just wanted to make sure that there is a significant amount of work, because I know some of them are not from Seminole County.
Yes.
So that there's that they participate, and there's a significant amount of their services that are in Seminole County.
Absolutely, and I did talk to the team that selected these not-for-profits, and any not-for-profit whose home base, so to speak, is not in Seminole has to give a significant amount of support to Seminole County, services in Seminole County, in order to receive the grant.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Hurd?
As your team and the legal department is looking at possible uses of ARPA funds, it is my understanding that there is an opportunity to reimburse your health care expenditure account for any COVID-related expenses.
I don't want to say yes or no to that.
I'm not asking.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
the good news is I'm not asking. What I am asking to do is that you investigate that, because that is an one-time opportunity to reimburse the fund. My perspective from a healthcare spend for our organization is that COVID-related expenses are not going away. They may be seen differently than we're seeing today, so we should expect health plan costs to continue to go up. And if there's an opportunity to shore up with these funds, we should do it. I just want to thank Mr. Green from the Midway Canaan City Coalition for his offer. I'm going to be a little bit more specific about your offer to staff, and that is that you have been very forthcoming about the opportunity for right-of-way not to get in the way. and that your organization will help us. So I'm saying that out loud on the record, and we are here to, I will facilitate it if I need to. So you all just let us know what you need. And with that, I think that is my last thought.
Mr. Zimbauer?
Thank you. Question on the tourism remaining dollars. Have we had discussion with our hoteliers that they absolutely are good to go? They have no further needs? They're in a good place?
Certainly, I absolutely know where you're coming from. Tourism's part of my team. So have we made sure they understand that this is an opportunity? I certainly don't mind having the tourism folks circle back. I will tell you, Guy Cunha, if you've worked with him, is tenacious, and he has really tried to engage. In fact, we had a few more who were interested, but then they didn't get the agreement executed. My guess is maybe their umbrella company wasn't interested in getting involved with it. There is the reporting piece, and for $10,000, some folks may just not have the resources to do that. But certainly, we put December 31st in as a deadline, mainly so staff wasn't dragging it out for 2 years. But we can certainly circle back if that's something the board would like to see us do. But I do believe he's been pretty clear with them.
Sure, thank you. And then is staff looking at, one of the concerns I've always had was some of the programs that we are kicking off, arguably new under this ARPA funding, is ongoing commitments to this county as far as costs in coming years. Have we looked at that to have a good understanding of if we do A today under ARPA funding, what do we do about funding that after ARPA funding has evaporated and gone away?
Absolutely. So it varies from program to program. For example, the hotels or the not-for-profits, the 400, the smaller not-for-profits, the monies they are awarded are a one-time. You purchase PPE, a hiring incentive. They are not reoccurring. Part of our vetting process are the questions about how are you going to sustain this long-term? And we really haven't had something come to you yet where that is a concern. I have a feeling we will, though, and we'll have to share with you, here's kind of what we're trying to balance and why we may or may not recommend something because of that.
Maybe paramedicine,
Yes.
mental health initiatives that we're kicking off, which are great. We need this, we need that in the county.
Sure.
The work we're doing with the sheriff's office. Do we have a clear understanding moving forward for those programs where those funding sources will come from 2, 3, 4, and 5 years?
It is something that we discussed with the sheriff's office when we were working on their agreement. There is a lot of that they're still ironing out themselves. It's a fairly new, what is a new program by and large. In terms of paramedicine, I apologize, I can't speak to that. So, and I don't believe, Chief, I don't know if you can speak to it. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. And if you can't, we can get some information for you and follow up.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I know it's a program that there has been discussion of expanding it, and certainly we could talk about expanding it through ARPA dollars, but to your point, it's that long-term, 3 years down the road, what will we, how will we continue to?
Great, thank you. Next question I have is for the county attorney.
Go right ahead.
Whichever county attorney.
We'll figure that out when you ask the question.
I think it's going to be Bryant. So we heard in the presentation some of the interlocal agreements that we are working on with the cities. It sounds like it may be March before we have something ready to go. Is there anything to streamline this process? Can we streamline it? My concern is, as time continues to go forward, we may find entities that don't have the need or may not exist, whether that's individual assistance, whether that's small business with the help from the cities, rolling that money out as quick as possible. Is there any way to fast track that? And I understand what we're hearing from the cities, that some of that may be coming later, funding-wise.
Sure.
And not a full commitment from some of those cities. But I often worry about, the whole intention was to get the money on the street, to help the families that have a need today, not 2 months from now. And businesses that have arguably had a need for some time, that waiting 2 more months, they may not be here to take advantage of it. So I just wonder how we stand with that, or what your thoughts are there, Mr. Applegate?
Well, I think a lot of that is going to rest with the cities. I mean, we're going to be ready to go with the agreements. You know, little show and tell, I just brought those binders down this morning. This is just the last year that Burjesh has been working on. This new rule is 500 and some pages. We've read it, or I should say, he read the whole thing. But reading it is one thing. Understanding it and deciphering it is another, plus with the Treasury guidance that's coming out constantly. We're on top of it. I mean, Tricia and her staff has done an amazing job. I would put our county at the top of how this money has gone out of this county. But we work with the cities all the time. I mean, Burjesh has talked to all the city attorneys. But, you know.
So we're comfortable, you believe we're comfortable, we understand it moving forward, so we don't have to go back and revisit what the final rule means or says?
Well, and here's the key. Our main concern, and, you know, Burjesh is part of the team that's been guidance. The last thing we want is to give somebody money and have the feds come in and say, we're doing an audit. And that's another reason why this is just one of 3 sets of binders. That's why we're prepared to address an audit if it comes. So, you know, that's a big part of our job, to make sure that, and we work with staff every day, so.
Great.
And if I may, I gave you the March date simply because the challenges with the cities is simply they have to go to their commission first.
Sure.
And I don't want to pigeonhole them into second meeting in February and suddenly we've missed the window.
Right.
But we have 2 cities who have given me their edits to the agreement, most of which I think we'll be able to iron out, and then 2 that are working on their end. So we're near the finish line with them. And one of them, we really didn't know that they were going to participate at all. So we really only have one that's kind of more outstanding from the city standpoint. And I think what has been interesting to watch with this process is, and absolutely agree, we want to get the money out as quickly as possible, but we really are aggressive as a county when I look at a lot of other counties and cities that are still trying to iron out what their programs are even going to be. So it is something that I think we should all be very proud of, and understanding that we're just continuing to push. And I just keep telling the team, and most of them are here, just think about 6 months from now, when most of these agreements are going to be done, and we won't have to meet every other week for 2 hours on Zoom and, you know, give the update about where we are with stormwater and so forth, and we're getting there. But this, I would say, is probably the biggest push in ARPA for us. It's getting these agreements done, ironed out between the cities, other organizations, deciding how this board would like to allocate additional dollars. That's really kind of, we're still in the middle of the marathon right now, but I think we're halfway, so that's something, right?
Great. Well, it sounds like everybody's on top of it, so good work. We appreciate it very much. Thank you all.
Commissioner Lockhart?
I do think it's great work, and I think it's a good plan, and I think sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. And as frustrating as that is, I mean, it was the first push of getting money into the hands of citizens who needed to pay their rent, pay their electric bill, put food on the table. That was absolutely, we got to get that going. But now we're talking about really getting into the devils in the details of some of these other requests that we could potentially have the feds come and claw back. And no one wants to be in that situation. The entity nor us wants to be in that spot. So I think it's important that that we have laid out a path, a framework for how we're going to go forward. And if we can stick to that framework, I think it would be great for all of us at the end of the day. Might be a little frustrating in the process, but I think we'll all be better for it at the end.
Thank you. The question I have has to, I think what you're doing is all great work, and I think you're right. The hard work you're putting in now will pay dividends back in months to come, and I think the people who will see that payback will be the citizens of this county, so thank you. The question I have is regarding the 7 cities. I see that we have agreements with Altamont, Oviedo, tentatively with Castleberry and Sanford, and Longwood. Winter Springs, they're still trying to figure it out, correct?
Winter Springs has expressed an interest in participating in the broadband program.
Okay, but not the rest of the other programs?
My understanding from their city manager is he was still discussing with their commission if there were any other programs in which they'd like to participate.
Okay, and then we have the other city, the seventh city, the city of Lake Mary, that is participating or not participating?
They have chosen at this time not to participate. They're focusing their funds on some specific projects within the city.
Because the reason why I think it's an advantage for the 7 cities to participate is because then their city residents become involved and could potentially reap those benefits, because then the question happens, what happens if a city is not participating? What happens to those residents? You know, do we say, go to your city? And I think that's a conversation that should be taking place, because our money is basically for the unincorporated part. The city's money, which is the 7 cities, is for the incorporated part. And so by us partnering with the 7 cities, it's seamless. By cities either doing it alone or not participating, then those residents need to be made understood that they need to be going to their city officials to figure out what programs they qualify for. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, for individual assistance, for example, if a city has chosen not to participate in that program and they come to us for funding, then they are told they need to contact their city directly.
Okay.
Small business, that isn't the case simply because it is being funded out of our COVID relief dollars. So that's a countywide program.
And I get there's 2 different buckets.
So beyond that, because most of the programs, the Sheriff's Initiative being an example, are new, we're still working with them on what those programs will look like. And I don't want to speak for the Sheriff's Initiatives, it's the first one that popped in my mind, but my understanding is that is a county-wide program, and it is to our benefit that the cities are contributing to it, those that have chosen to. I know that you intend to have a later conversation to kind of clarify, later meeting, what that may look like, and if a city chooses not to participate, is there a loss to their citizens? But I believe those programs are countywide, whether a city is participating or not. So that is a challenge in terms of how it's set up with some of these programs.
Because it's not fair to the other cities that are participating, and it's not fair to the county residents that are participating.
Sure.
If the cities don't participate. And then I'll go to Commissioner Zimbarrow, then Commissioner Herr.
If staff can clarify, and maybe it's probably Burgess or county attorney, I've read through our grant and I haven't read all those documents, but I've certainly read more than I really cared to read. But the award that we received here in Seminole County is based on the entire county population. It doesn't segregate one city versus another city. In other words, we've received the money based on our population, which includes the 7 cities, and that money would be shared whether you're in a city or unincorporated. I just want some clarity on that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Burjesh Patel, Senior Assistant County Attorney. That's correct. The funding that the county received is based on the population of the county.
So my concern is, to Commissioner DeLaury's point, is I understand his concern and don't disagree that we want our 7 cities to contribute, be partners, but what I want to make clear is that if we have a family that's in need or a business that's in need, that just because their city is not giving towards our programs, that they should still be entitled.
I want clarification, that's why I'm bringing it up.
So that is correct, though. If I interpret the ARPA funding, there's nothing there that says we shouldn't give it to somebody that's in the city versus the county or unincorporated or incorporated. It's county-wide.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Herr?
Thank you, Chairman. I actually think that the notion of going to the cities for participation in county programs was driven by our county manager, with the idea that we would build partnerships that would help the citizens have a more seamless experience with some of the programs, and that we would eliminate some of the administrative overhead associated with the programs, such as Ernst & Young. We already have a contract with them, no need for the other 7 cities to go out and do that. So I look at it very differently. First of all, the money is federal money that came into the community based on the entire population. I think that's an excellent point. I think there are programs in here where you can segregate it the way you're asking, and that is with relief to businesses, the way we're doing it, and the cities understand that. But there are programs in here that have to touch the whole community, because a solution for a homeless person that resides in the city of Winter Springs is a solution for the rest of the Seminole County residents that aren't dealing with the potential crime output, et cetera, that may happen as a result of that. Same with a drug addiction, same with a community paramedic program that, by the way, can bill for those services and generate an ongoing revenue stream, just so you know. So I look at this very differently. I am grateful to the cities that did participate. I am understanding and will offer grace to those that chose not to. They may have a different need in a different space and time, and I think that we should look at it holistically from the perspective of the humans that we serve.
Any other comments from the board? Any direction from the board? Thank you.
Move forward and report back, I guess.
Well, I think the question on the table in terms of spending is to award the current not-for-profits the $400K. So I would, if you want a motion, I'd be happy to do that.
In the past, with CARES not-for-profits, we brought them to the board on the agenda. So they were officially approved at that time.
Okay.
We bring them to you on February 8th.
Great.
So your motion is to put them on February the 8th? Or-
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
Sure.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, now my legislative update. Transitioning. This will be quick.
We're going on to the next agenda item, which is item number 34.
Thank you very much. I will keep this brief, and I don't have slides, but as we begin, this is the third week of legislative session, regular legislative session 2022. More than 400 bills that are not necessarily of benefit to the counties have been filed, to local governments, I should say. Last week, Commissioner Constantine, Commissioner Lockhart, and I had the opportunity to represent Seminole County at the Florida Association of Counties Conference. Some bills that staff is monitoring that are of significance are SB 280 relating to local ordinances, SB 620 relating to claiming business damages on county ordinances, and Joint Resolution 1 relating to additional homestead property tax exemptions. Normally, I would give you a little overview of each of those, but since Commissioner Constantine was the representative, not only one of the representatives, at the FAC conference, he also represented FAC as vice chair. I asked him earlier if he wouldn't mind talking about these bills and their significance to local government, particularly because he did testify in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee last Thursday in opposition to SB 260. So, Commissioner, please.
620.
Excuse me,
It's all
goodness,
right.
thank you.
Well, I think all of us know about the three most onerous bills that are before us that will, in our opinion, thank you. And I did enjoy having both Tricia and Commissioner Lockhart there. I'm really impressed with the way FAC is representing us, especially this year, because they have made a lot of progress. Senate Bill 280, which is mostly the idea of Senator Pasadoma, who is going to be the incoming Senate president. She worked with FAC and the League of Cities. 90% of the concerns that we had, she accepted as a strike-all in 280. The things that we feel that we can work with her and through this bill, and so both the League of Cities and the Association of Counties has reversed from being against to being supportive. Now, we're still watching that bill, hoping that it doesn't change. One of the things I've always said is I never co-sponsored bills because they could change in a heartbeat, and all of a sudden something I loved is something I hate. But in this case, and it's a good thing, because working with the incoming president and changing something that was her number one priority into something we can work with speaks well for the next legislative session, certainly. Senate Bill 620, however, I will tell you, is still a major concern for, I think, all local governments. That is the one where, and I will say that our county attorney has said this is the worst bill he's ever seen when it comes to local governments. And that was the one that I spoke on in appropriations. The bad news is that it's the number one priority of Senate President Simpson, and as run by Senator Hudson. But it went straight to appropriations. It actually lost its it's not even going to rules. And rules is where all bills are supposed to go before they go on the floor. But it was at the Senate Appropriations Committee last week, and what it is, very short synopsis, is if a business feels that any ordinance that we, local government, has put into place harms their business by more than 15%, they can sue us. Revenue. It was, I don't know if it was revenue, it was profits, it was both at one time. Now I think it's profits. The interesting thing is, and others on the executive board of Florida Association of Counties, as myself, used a number of different examples. But take, for example, when I first came here, I know Commissioner Delory and others had fought very hard to get rid of internet cafes. We were going through a legislation. Under this bill, internet cafes could sue us for their revenue for 7 years if we put them out of business. Same thing would go for the pill mills that all of us know. So it basically allows businesses that were either in the gray or the wrong side of, in many cases, the law, to literally come back and sue government. I used the example, and I think it hit home because they're asking many cities and counties to go convert from septic to sewer. And I said, if we did that, we would, in essence, let's say we took out 20% of the septics, the septic tank companies could sue us for loss of profit. That's the bad news. Also, the bad news is it went 11-7 appropriations. We did get one Republican senator to switch. But because of the outpouring of information that was given, Senator Hudson, one thing we won right then and there, one of the worst things is we were paying for all the legal costs no matter what. We were able to get prevailing parties into the bill and accepting that small win. But more importantly, they came back after all of the newspaper stories and indications and said we would work with the Association of Counties and League of Cities in a rewrite. They didn't accept they didn't agree that they would take the rewrite, but they did say that they would work with us on a strike-off. The county association is still 100% against the bill, even with the prevailing parties. And I said that, we'll accept that, but it's the underlying policy that's wrong. So that's where we are with that.
I had the opportunity to watch Commissioner Constantine's testimony, and I think and he did an excellent job, represented FAC and our board very well. One of the things that I think was remarkable was that not just Commissioner Constantine's testimony, but the testimony of others brought up a lot of these scenarios that were just, you could tell, hadn't been thought about. Mm-hmm. And Senator Hudson did acknowledge at the end of all of the testimony that there were some things that were brought to his attention that he had not thought about, and if others could compile those types of scenarios and present them to him, that he would be very interested in hearing about them and looking at those. So hopefully that's an indication that there was some acknowledgement that maybe there's some significant tweaking that needs to occur. And sometimes a great idea when you're sitting around with 2 or 3 friends seems like a great idea until you start talking to 20 or 30 friends, and then you start to realize, maybe, there's more to this. Unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. So as much as it may be the county attorney's worst bill he's ever seen, I do want to continue to cultivate that relationship and that partnership with our friends in the legislature so that we can talk through and work through these things in an amicable way, because I think there's hope. There has to be hope.
Yeah. The only bad news about the 620 is the strike all would have to be on the floor, because it's not going to rules. It's going straight to the floor. So
It's on the floor on Thursday.
yeah, so we'll see. We'll know by Thursday whether they're actually listening to us or not. And then, of course, we don't know how, we know the House is semi-supportive or supportive, but we don't know how much. And I will tell you that in the legislature, as we all know, there's a give and take. And I can tell you the bill, and this is the next one I'm going to talk about, that the Speaker wants very bad, because the bill is HJ1, House Joint Resolution 1. There's a reason it's number 1, and that's because it's his. And that one is on another homestead exemption that, they love to say that they're cutting taxes, but they're always cutting our taxes, not their taxes. They haven't done a bill in a long time to cut state taxes, but they love to cut our taxes. And what they're doing right now is that if an evaluation is greater than 150 and 100,000 and up to 150,000, that additional 50,000 homestead exemption could be given to, and I'll just go through the list: classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correction officers, firefighters, child welfare services, active member of the U.S. Armed Services, or a member of the Florida National Guard. Now, that sounds wonderful. And, we all want to help each and every one of those groups. What it doesn't indicate is it takes nothing into effect of income, and essentially it's shooting an arrow at a target and missing it completely, because the people that it will actually help are those on the upper echelons of those that own homes. Most of the groups that we just talked about are renters in many cases, or are looking for affordable housing, and this would not even affect them. And so those that are renting and anyone else in the community would be paying higher for the services, as these folks would be paying lower. So this is a very, very, a difficult bill to wrap your arms around, but it is out there, and it is something that estimated, and of course these estimates are always can be wrong, but the estimate is that it would cost a minimum of $83 million. So there we go.
Across the state.
Across the state, yes, of course. I didn't, not to us. To us, it would be devastating, but across the state.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No, I was just, unless there's questions.
Anything else?
No, thank you very much, Commissioner. The only other thing I wanted to mention is our 3 appropriations requests, which are all being sponsored by Representative Smith, have passed their first committees of reference last week and move on to appropriations. The date has not yet been scheduled, but that is some good news. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. This time we move on to item number 35. Mr. Abel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, last meeting you asked for me to do some research and bring back to you for your further consideration the idea of continuing with the raw wastewater testing services that we were doing in partnership as a pass-through with the City of Altamont. I'd like to first of all say that a big, huge thank you to the Attorney's Office, Procurement, Emergency Management, Environmental Services for scrambling over the last week and a half to 2 weeks to get this to you in a format that basically allows us to do a piggyback contract with the testing company directly, GT Molecular. This will avoid any pass-through, any concern about what information we get or we don't get. This information will come directly to us, and we will hopefully continue to be able to work and provide that information to other partners so that any cumulative data gathering or anything that we would want to consider moving forward would allow for that. So for your consideration today, I would recommend that if you want to move forward with continuing this, we would do this piggyback through the Orange County contract with GT Molecular on these services moving forward.
Thank you. This was an item that Commissioner Constantine brought up. Commissioner Constantine, any further comments?
Just to your knowledge, you're saying that through a pass-through from the county of Orange County is going to be more beneficial to us than working with one of our local city partners?
No, there's no pass-through. This is this is a contract directly with GT Molecular.
Then
So
I
our
asked the
contract-
question incorrectly, but you feel that this is more of a benefit to us to go piggyback onto the contract with Orange County than working with our city?
Yes, this is my recommendation.
And we will be getting the same information?
Correct.
Direction from the board. Commissioner Hurd, then Commissioner Lockhart.
I'm going to ask the same question that I ask every time we talk about this, and that is, what does having this information change for any member of our community? If Orange County's already doing it, Altamont is already doing it, what does adding more into the mix do, other than pay a significant amount of money to the testing facility?
Commissioner, can we just take a 5-minute recess? That way we have all the commissioners here.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Take a 5-minute recess. I believe Commissioner Herr has the floor. Sorry about that. Just give me a minute.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So the question stands, as stated, that I would like to hear someone articulate exactly what benefit the members of our community get from the expenditure related to this. When you read the material, there's testing already happening in Orange County, there's testing happening in Seminole County. Adding to the testing pool doesn't get us any more information, it doesn't get us any faster information, but what it does do is increase the amount of business for the testing site, which I don't mind at all, but I'd really like to understand what we think the value is to doing this.
Well, I think what I've gathered probably more in the last 2 weeks than in the previous conversations that we've had is two things. One is I think this provides for more data points. So anytime you're collecting data, the more data points you have, the more information that you can glean from that. The other thing that was really probably more important to me was the information that I think Alan got back from a couple of the hospitals that says that they are actually using the data for staffing purposes. It does allow them to get ahead. I believe Tim Cook with Advent made the comment that it allows them to look at their staffing in preparation with some of the information that's coming in. Even though it's not a long lead time, it is in some cases enough lead time for them to change and work toward a better staffing model. So I agree that how much testing is more than enough. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do know that in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, those are my takeaways to that question.
And there were more than one CEO, Tim Cook and?
Donna, I think Donna made reference to that. Kevin also, Kevin Baker with the Health Department and Donna both made comments to that. Tim and I believe David Sinclair, one of the doctors at Advent Health, had weighed in on that as well.
So it's one hospital?
Yeah.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
I don't necessarily disagree with the premise that Commissioner Herr raises. I'd like to hear, first and foremost, and I'll have a follow-up question, what percentage of Seminole County wastewater is being tested right now with us not in the program? Terry McHugh might be the person best to answer that. I don't know. But what percentage of Seminole County wastewater is currently being tested? Is it 5, 10, 20%, 50% that's being done by the city of Altamont Springs, and I guess now the city of Castleberry, I learned this morning?
For the record, Terry McHugh, Director, Environmental Services. It'd be hard for me to put a guess on that now, but that is something I can get back to you with. So it'd be looking at their total flow rates compared to the rest of the county.
So maybe a better question is, geographically, landmass-wise, we know what wastewater systems we operate, and I know that you have a handle on what Altamont operates and what City of Castleberry operates. So of those utilities, wastewater utilities, who owns the lion's share of those in this county? Is it Seminole County? Is it the City of Altamont? Is it the City of Castleberry? And I'm not looking for an exact. I'm not going to hold you to like, yeah, it's 2.8% or whatever it is.
I mean, the largest wastewater one should be Altamont, Sanford, and Seminole County. But lots of Seminole County pieces we contract with Altamont Springs or Utilities, Inc. to treat.
Okay, all right. I think that answers what I think I need to know at this point, so thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So, Dr. McHugh, while you're there, when we were participating, how many of our plants were testing?
Both of the plants that we own and operate were testing.
2. And how frequently were we testing?
We were testing twice a week at each
Twice a
facility.
week. Okay, so twice a week times, so 4, do the math.
104 a year.
104 a year? Thank you. You did the math already, clearly.
No, I'm just good that way.
You're just good like that. So from a piggyback perspective, if we're looking at 595 per test, we should be well under the almost $100,000 we were paying before, if that's,
Well, it's the same amount of money. It's comes out to about $9,600 a month, I believe it is.
That's correct, sir.
and that's what we were paying before?
That's correct. It's the
Okay.
same rate.
And then I noticed that in the RFQ, they're testing for specific variants, and of course, this is an older contract. Are we confident that they're testing for new variants? Because they're specified here.
Yes, I believe when I read through this that there is language further in here that says that there's an allowance for additional testing, different
Okay.
variants.
And just to be sure, are we only availing ourselves in this contract of the items in number 1 and not the items in number 2? Optional item 2, are we availing ourselves of the options there or no? I'm sorry, I'm on page 38 of the contract.
Yes, at this point, that would be our intent, is just to do option 1.
Option 1,
Yes.
okay. And the insert that doesn't have a page number, that begins right after, not sure which page it is. I don't have a page of the actual agenda item numbers in this, so I don't know what page it is, but it's titled Supplemental Wastewater Testing Information.
It's right at the end of the contract.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where did this come from, and who created this piece of the document?
This is actually part of the package that came from Orange County and their information provided.
Because it references the Florida Department of Health in Seminole County has found value. So I would just like to know who created this document.
I would have to get back with you on that.
Okay. And the news articles that were also included, was that a member of our team that included these New York Times articles dated January 19th, 2022?
Yes, that was the one that actually, David Shields provided that to Bryant and I as we were looking through information, and he provided that one for us. Other articles that are referenced, I believe most of those were from Donna Walsh in her response in the email.
Okay.
I think Kevin Baker had also provided some information.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, not from me.
Is Sanford testing?
Pardon me?
Is Sanford testing?
Not to my knowledge.
Mr. Zindow?
Thank you. I know I hesitated when I was asking Terry, and I wasn't quite finished. So my next question was, I just want clarification. I think we got clarification on a question from someone else after myself. It was about a pass-through, the cost now versus the cost previously. The cost is the same? Is
Yes,
that what I'm
sir.
hearing?
Yes, sir.
There's no difference?
No.
So it's the same whether we contract with Orange County or what we previously had with the city of Altamont?
So let me be clear, we're not contracting with Orange County.
Okay, well, piggybacking on their contract.
We
Got
are,
it.
they went through a solicitation process.
Understood.
Have a contract, and we're using that contract to create our agreement with GT Molecular for this testing service.
Okay. But the price is the same?
Price is the same, yes.
Okay. Did you look at their RFP?
Did I look at their?
At Orange County's?
Yes, sir. I briefly looked through it.
And my question is, how many entities replied to their RFP? You recall?
Commissioner, sorry.
Wow.
There's one in the room.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Mark,
Commissioner.
make a statement. I like it. Make it happen.
He's used to having that mic turned way down.
So I do know it was competed. I can't recall how many firms were in the pool, but it was competed. They had several firms.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just stay close. Commissioner Herr?
So, just correct me if I'm wrong. In the past, we were doing it through Altamont. Altamont was submitting to the company was reporting back to Altamont. Altamont was handing reports to us.
Yes and no. The testing was done directly from us to GT Molecular.
Yep.
They were doing the testing. The data then was coming back to the city of Altamont.
And so the reports that we were getting were filtered through Altamont. So the value to the contract going directly with GT Molecular via a piggyback on a competitively bid RFP is that we would have a direct conduit to the firm that's doing the testing and therefore the reporting getting from the firm.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Before we ask for direction from the board, do we have any written requests?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to the board on this issue? Just let's go to the public. Seeing none, we'll close public input. Mr. Abel?
Just one point of clarification. You asked about the one document that was actually prepared by Donna Walsh.
Thank you.
Which, I don't remember
It was me.
which commissioner. I'm
It
sorry.
was me.
It's okay.
We both look alike.
Direction from the board.
I was thinking that. I was thinking that.
Direction from the board?
I'll move approval of a recommendation from the county manager.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion?
I won't be supporting the motion. I don't think it's a good use of taxpayer money.
Any other discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
No.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you. Before we conclude the agenda of the morning, I want to ask County Attorney, do you have any other items?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go on to the afternoon portion of the agenda. I'd like to ask the board for acceptance of proof of publication.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Statement for the public hearing. Our staff will present each item for consideration with staff's recommendation. The board will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff when the presentation has been finished. The applicant will have the opportunity to make a presentation after the staff. The board will have a chance to ask questions once the presenter is finished. Members of the public interested in speaking, either for or against the project or the issue, please fill out the yellow speaker form located in the lobby. Indicate the item number, whether you're for or against the item, and place the form in the tray or give it to Shaney. Members of the board, members of the public, will only be allowed to be given comments on once per item. If you'd like to have your comments submitted for the record, please fill out the green form located in the lobby on the table, either submit it in the tray or present it to Shaney here at the front of the dais. Speakers should state their name and address clearly for the record, whether they're for or against the item. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak unless they're an official spokesperson of an HOA or legal organization or a group. They'll be given 6 minutes. If a board member has questions regarding the speaker's comments, the opportunity will be given once the speaker's time has been expired. Speakers should limit their comments pertinent to the information regarding to the agenda item under consideration, keeping in the theme of the agenda item. The clerk's office is requested to retain all documents, photographs, drawings, and anything that's presented here to the board for the public record at the presentation of the Board of County Commissioners. So if you show it to us, please be prepared to leave it with the clerk. Once all the speakers are heard, the applicant will be given an opportunity to rebut if necessary. We'll close the public hearing and put the matter in front of the commissioners for discussion of recommendations and or motion. Following the motion or a second, the board will have a discussion and a vote to be taken. Commissioners who do not cast an objecting vote are considered to vote in favor of the support of the motion. On the quasi-judicial public hearing, while the board members welcome comments from all persons of interest in the proceedings, Florida law requires that the board discussion of quasi-judicial actions be supported by competent, substantial evidence presented to the board during the hearing of the application. Competent substantial evidence is such evidence that's reasonable in mind and would be accepted as adequate in support of the conclusion. There must be factual base of record and support of the testimony for both experts and non-experts witnesses. Does any of the board members have any quasi-public hearing comments that need to submit to the record? I've submitted mine electronically.
I've submitted mine.
Electronically.
Electronically.
Likewise.
Okay, so all board members have done that. Persons presenting testimony will rely on factual information at the present and presented by the staff. At the applicant's presentation or factual information regarding to the staff report supporting their testimony. All persons who present written material to the board for consideration must be ensured that copies of such material will be provided to the clerk at the end for the board record and proceedings of official minutes. That's the end. At this time, we'll hear the first item of public hearing, which is quasi-judicial, which is item number 36. We'll hear from staff.
Yes, good afternoon. Joy Giles, Senior Planner for the Planning and Development Division. This request is to consider a resolution to vacate and abandon a portion of uncut right-of-way as recorded in Plat Book 2, page 74 in the public records of Seminole County for property located on the south side of North County Road 426, half a mile east of Lockwood Boulevard. The applicants have petitioned the county to vacate the subject portion of uncut right-of-way known as Wichita Street, lying along the west side of Lot 8 of the Florida Groves Company First Edition to Black Hammock subdivision, which the applicants currently own and reside at. The applicant has provided letters of no objection from all applicable utility companies. A letter of opposition was received on January 19, 2022, from the adjacent property owner to the south with concerns of reasonable access to the property. Therefore, Public Works, who originally did review and approve the request, no longer supports the request to vacate the subject right-of-way. Staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners deny adoption of the resolution vacating and abandoning an uncut portion of right-of-way as recorded in Plat Book 2, page 74 of the Seminole County Public Records. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbow?
It's Wichita.
Wichita. I knew that I pronounced that incorrectly. Thank you.
Is it? Wichita.
Wichita.
It made my day, though. It was awesome.
She's never been to Kansas.
It was super awesome.
Well, Kansas Street's just down around the corner a bit.
Talk about the state.
Arkansas.
If we could just stay on point, thank you very much. At this time, we'll hear from the property owner of the applicant. Are they present? If you could, please give us your name and address for the record, sir.
John Taylor, 1999 North County Road 426, Oviedo, 32765. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies of the board, as well as the gentlemen. I'm a little curious about that yellow box right there, because the property owner that I thought was to my south was Mr. Cox, Art Cox. He died about 3.5 years ago. And so the property's been vacant up to that point. And they are actually in Van Arsdale Estates, which is different than Wichita County, Wichita. So I'm trying to figure out what the issue is here. The reason I'm trying to get this piece of property is because I feel a lot of snakes, a lot of moccasins and rattlesnakes. They come out of that swamp area right there. We want to fill it in a little bit better and then ditch it out like it's supposed to be and put up a nice vinyl fence. And the county, I went to the county and asked them, said, can you help me here? He said, we haven't cut it in years, we don't plan on it. So I started cutting it and spraying it for mosquitoes. I think it's only right that I've done what I was told to do. So I don't know who it is that is supposedly complaining, because I talked to a young lady back here. I thought she was actually my neighbor. That's Mr. Cox's daughter. So she has a complaint. She was upset because she thought she didn't know about the right-of-way. So she thought I was encroaching on her property. I said, no, I'm actually trying to get to right-of-way. That's all I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
I don't know what else to do.
Well, let's hear from the public, and then the board will have rights to ask you questions.
Okay.
Thank you. You have any written requests?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the chambers that would like to speak to the board? Anyone in the board? Anyone in the chambers? We'll close public input. We'll now ask the board for, do you have any, board members, do you have any questions? This is a District 2 item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like Mr. Dredge, if he could come up for just a moment, please. Thank you.
For the record, John Dredge, Public Works Director, County Engineer.
Just a question. This was initially supported by staff, and then secondary to that, it's no longer supported by staff. My question is, the only thing that changed from the time of approval to the staff changing for non-approval is letters from surrounding property owners. And is that to be meant we weren't aware of their ingress and egress for the property owner that sent the letter in of concern, or was it some other reason?
Is the reason for, because that is the shortest distance for access to 426. There are some other access right away to the east side, if you look.
Right.
But will be very long distance. If somebody build a house on it, to put a driveway, to require him to go all the way to the east, that's a long distance for somebody to expect him.
No, understood. I'm very familiar.
That's what the reason.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the property and that whole area is the reason I had a concern with it initially, and I couldn't understand what the scenario was. And it just sort of struck me as we were recommending supporting and not recommending supporting.
Yeah, they overlooked it until they received that notice rejection from the adjacent property.
All right, thank you. Unless my fellow commissioners have any inquiries?
Commissioner Lockhart?
Mr. Dredge, and I'm looking at two different views of this, the actual survey and then the aerial that's up on the screen. The white line that's on the southern end of the property, north of Ms. McDonald's property, is that right-of-way? Is that an easement? What is that runs across the driveways? And what is that delineating?
That's an easement.
John, can you take your remote mic so we can hear you?
Okay. Yeah.
I thought you were going to stand
It's
up.
plotted as right away.
It's plotted as right-of-way.
Yeah, that's what I was talking before. If you vacate the one in red, the access is going to be going
Okay, well,
to the east and to the north.
then I have even more questions than I thought I had. I thought you were going to say, oh, it's a drainage easement or whatever. Okay, so if that is right-of-way, it appears that part of the home is overlapping, and these outbuildings that are in the southeast corner. Yeah, so
Commissioner, so we did learn that the map is not exactly correct. It
that's
is
good.
off. When you're looking at this map, the lines are slightly off. The widths of the right-of-ways don't exactly measure as they are supposed to.
Okay,
So
and the
this way I can explain
survey,
that.
that's great. And the survey that's on page 411 of our agenda doesn't appear to show right-of-way at all on the southern end. It shows the 15-foot unopened roadway on the west side of the property, but it doesn't indicate anything on the south. And then it says this is not a survey, so I don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Bill White reviewed it and provide comment.
Hello, for the record, Bill White, Development Review Engineering. Let me just give you a little background on our original review, and in looking at it with the GIS wasn't exactly correct, so it looks like that this right-of-way was 40 feet, and what we found out that the right-of-way in red was 20 feet. It goes down to an existing 50-foot right-of-way that heads to the east over to Bar Street. And then the other parcel over there drops that right-of-way down to about 30 feet. So looking at it from a perspective of development, that avenue would have been the widest right-of-way available to them, because 20 feet wouldn't be wide enough for actually developing it. But to look at it as if I was just to put a house there, then the most reasonable access that one would take would be through that 20-foot access up to 426.
Okay, so then I'm just going to say this, and I'll park it with the county manager, and you can do with it what you want, but nothing then that's in this is accurate, because the plat says it's a 15, the survey says it's 15 feet, you're saying it's actually 20 feet, the map is wrong, it doesn't indicate, so that's not cool. So I'm going to go with what you're telling us now for making the decision, because I don't know what I should really be looking at in here or not.
Well,
So does the McDonald property have access if we vacate the right-of-way that may be 15 or 20 feet?
Yes, they would.
How-
There's two accesses, and that would be the east-west run that would take you over to Bar Street, which is the dirt road that heads north to get to 426. So there is access. That's in between two, I want to say St. John's Water Management District properties. So the access is available to them. It's just her opposition was that if I were to build a house, it's not the most reasonable access, because now I'm going 650 feet of having to build some kind of a driveway or an access, as opposed to what this says is 190, maybe, if I'm reading that right. Yeah, about 100, well, 200 feet almost. And the discrepancy between the 15 feet and the 20 was, when it was originally submitted, the surveyor was calling it 15 feet, and then through review with our right-of-way department, it was determined that it is actually 20 feet. So we had sent it out for a correction, and that's just a typo in the wording in the center. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I mean, it's not, but, it is what it is. So it's an easement, not an open right-of-way that goes to the north of the McDonald's. Is that what you're saying?
It's all right-of-way currently.
Okay, someone just said it was, okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I might have misspoke if I
that's
said
okay.
easement, but.
Oh, it's fine.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. Direction from the board. This is a District 2 item.
Yes, thank you. Those of you who've been out there, and I think probably everybody's been out through the hammock, and Mr. Dredge well knows that we are continually, and we actually have drainage studies going on in this area now. This is a very, very sensitive drainage area from 426 all the way down to Lake Jessup. It continues to be complaints to my office about flooding, ditches that aren't maintained. I mean, it's just a mess. It really is. It's so many things were done by the farmers years ago, which we didn't know about, which people assume it's our obligation, when in fact it's not. It's going through private property that's been used to drain. Well, then, because we don't own it, they've shut it down, and now water starts to back up. And I'm very sensitive to the applicant's concern about the snakes and so forth like that. However, that is the Black Hammock. It is as close as you're going to get to nature without being in, quote, the full-blown rural area, although it's developed there. I hope we can find a way to work with this resident, maybe with his fence request. He should be able to put a fence on his own property, but I have a major concern about abandoning any right-of-way or easements in this general area that could ultimately be used to help the drainage and the perk, to help all the residents through that corridor, including the city of Oviedo. So with that said, my motion is to deny adoption of the resolution vacating and abandoning a portion of the uncut right-of-way as recorded in Plat Book 2, page 74 in the public records of Seminole County, Florida.
Second.
We have a motion second. Everybody understand the motion? All in favor of the motion, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is item number 37.
Good afternoon. Excuse me, there's a note down here to stand back because the mic is so sensitive. Good afternoon. For the record, Rick Durr, Leisure Services Director. Item number 37 is amending Part 2, Public Parks of Chapter 190 of the Seminole County Code of Ordinances. The event that prompted this is the acquisition of the Wekiwa Golf Club. So we've been going through the ordinances and making sure that they were all straight. So while we went through this part of Chapter 190, this particular update pertains to three different things. Number one is, while we were in there, making sure that all the references are current, so anytime we refer to the Florida statutes. Secondly, updated is Section 190.28, which is traffic. Under the current code, it is unlawful to operate golf carts in parks. It's an interesting phrase. With the addition of the Wekiwa Golf Club to our inventory, obviously we need to allow for the operation of the golf carts in the golf course. Lastly, the final update is under Section 190.34, alcoholic beverages. Currently, the code prohibits consumption or possession of alcoholic beverages on county park property. The proposed language states now that the Wekiwa Golf Club, during operational hours, would not be subject to this provision, thus allowing the golf club to continue to maintain its current level of service. And those are everything that's been revised, so we have to answer any questions you have.
Okay, before we go to the board, just want to make sure we have a written request.
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to the board on this? Anyone in the audience? We'll close public input. Public input's now closed. We'll go to the board for questions and direction.
Mr. Chairman, I move to enact the proposed ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we go to the county manager's report.
I have nothing to report today, sir.
Thank you. County attorney's report.
No report at this time.
We'll go to the commissioner's reports, District 2.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to first say I think for the most part everything's fantastic in District 2.
Except for the
And I'll try to make this short. I continue to look forward to my fellow commissioner's support on FDOT, Ms. Lorene Bobo giving the presentation of Vision Zero. I hope you all will find your way to support that on an upcoming agenda item, at least the presentation portion, so we all can be informed about the traffic accidents and pedestrians and so forth that are being injured or unfortunately killed with motor vehicle accidents as well as bicyclists. Whether we take action to adopt it or not is a whole other matter, but I think it's well for us to at least watch that presentation and have a good understanding of that. The airport, we got some good news, bad news. As far as airport, Sanford Orlando International Airport, the final numbers are in for the year 2021, and the good news is 2021 was a 55% increase in passenger count over 2020. That's fantastic news. The bad news is it's still 27% below the 2019 passenger count, and we have new carriers. So hopefully the goal is moving forward as things relax around the world and around the country and people get more comfortable to traveling, that we hope to see an uptick there. There's a lot of exciting things going on at the airport. A lot of new movements with looking to help develop the commercial aspect of the out parcels for commercial, industrial use and so forth. So there's a big push now moving forward with that. So it's good stuff. Happy to report on the zoo, and I want to thank staff very much for your review of the funding that we gave to the zoo. Our budget office has reviewed it, and our county attorney has reviewed it, and the funds are verified to have been used properly. So that's all good news. Hope that helps answer a lot of questions that were flying around. Next on the item is February 2nd at noon. Post 243 Oviedo will have a 4 chaplain ceremony. Everybody's welcome to come. You can also find that on facebook.com/Oviedo Legion. February 4th, the Oviedo Solari Park grand opening event will happen at 5 p.m.
Commissioner Zimbauer,
Yes.
can you give us a little more information about the Fort Chaplain? I've been informed, the board members of all the citizens may find it interesting.
Yeah, give me just a second.
Sure.
The Solari Park is going to be a big event that opens for the city of Oviedo residents and so forth. The Four Chaplains ceremony is a great ceremony memorializing the chaplains' participation throughout the Legion and all the things that have gone for those that were here before us and gave us the privilege and the right to continue to be free in this country. So it's a fantastic event. Finally, I would ask that we keep one of our employees, many of you probably know him, he spent a lot of time on the third floor doing remodeling and so forth, Mr. Rolando Nieves, lost his wife last week of 25 years at a very young age. So if we'll keep him in his prayers. We've all seen him around, just a delightful man, just a good guy, pretty much does anything from painting to electrical to taking walls out. I mean, I've never seen a guy that does so many different things. He's a very handy gentleman. So that's all I have. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you. District 4?
No. Wanted to announce that the Orlando Magic is having their annual First Responders Night coming up on January 30th. And of course, it's to celebrate and honor the men and women that serve our community in all sorts of different capacities. Doors open at 6 o'clock. The game time is 7, and it's the Orlando Magic versus the Dallas Mavericks. They'll have vehicle displays and uniform displays, and the Orlando Magic Youth Foundation auction will also be going on that night with different first responder items. And of course, they'll be recognizing all of those amazing people throughout the evening. So if you all are interested in attending that game, I'm sure that folks will be happy to see us there. January 13th and 14th, I was in Gainesville for the Institute for County Government, Florida Association of Counties, Advanced County Commissioner class. That's a lot to say. I think one of the things that has been most impactful in participating in all of these classes is recognizing that every single participant, every county commissioner, every county, we are not unique. We all have really the same challenges, and it's working together with our local leaders, our state leaders, our constituents, and finding ways as things change to redefine our roles and our responsibilities and the way that we work with one another. And it just is amazing to me how being with other people from other jurisdictions with the same roles and responsibilities, we're all facing the same thing and the same challenges. And we're reading through Good to Great, which is, of course, a classic. And I'd read it before, probably like all of you have, but I've started listening to it again on audio as I've been driving all over creation lately. And boy, some phenomenal nuggets that just really remind me, especially as the five of us are embarking on the challenge of the search for a new county manager. One of the biggest principles that just hit me square in the face as I was listening to this again was first the who, then the what. And I would encourage anyone, I'm sure everybody's got the book on their bookshelf, go back and read that chapter. It was just really very impactful and timely. Of course, we talked a little bit about the FAC Conference and Innovation Day, and there were great things that went on in Tallahassee, lots of good meetings, good relationships continuing to be built there. And this week, we are taking the next step with the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council Executive Committee to select the new executive director for that organization. We're narrowing down the applications that were submitted to the finalists for interviews, so I will keep you all updated on that search process as well. That's it.
Thank you. District 3.
Thank you very much. Just a quick reminder that it was so good to see so many people at the Scottish Highlands Games. And of course, Commissioner Deloria and I were sitting there as Commissioner Lockhart came through with one of the clans, I think it was Ross.
Clan Ross, that's right.
With all her regalia on. And that was wonderful to see. And then the Asian lanterns at the zoo. The last day, with all the rain that happened on that day and the wind and everything, they were sold out, completely sold out. And the executive director said that they've signed another contract for, I think, another 2 years for that, so that's fantastic. Regional Planning Council will be meeting tomorrow. Commissioner Lockhart and I will be representing. On the 28th, our fire department is having their annual awards at the Sanford Civic Center, evening of the 28th. Also, on the 28th, Leadership Seminole is having their annual summit. It's going to be at the Lake Mary Event Center. On the 3rd of February, the Tourism TDC Board will be meeting here, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. District 5?
Thank you, Chairman. I had the pleasure of touring the Bomax facility, which is located in Merritt Island, which you may be questioning my geography prowess, but they are in the process of moving to Sanford. This is a facility, and I was hosted by Dr. Deborah Maxwell, who is a Seminole County resident. This is a facility that generates pure hydrogen at room temperature, which is important, on site. So picture a hydrogen-powered vehicle that can pull up to your box that generates hydrogen on site. It is literally amazing. She is a team of 3, her and 2 lab assistants that are all Seminole County residents, and when they come here to town, I would like them to be able to come and present their concept to you. It's beyond prototype, now it's in proof. They're scaling, and it really is amazing. I also attended the Dr. Phillips Center Steinmetz Hall opening, and I would tell you that if you have the opportunity to see something there, it is simply one of the most marvelous rooms you could ever be in. And just a sincere congratulations from Seminole County to Mayor Buddy Dyer and Catherine Ramsberger for seeing a 20-year vision to fruition. It is a gem to our community, and we are certainly blessed to have it. And then the last, a little update on business, and this was at the Port Authority meeting on 119. They have done a study to compare their rental rates to surrounding area similar properties, and we are within a penny per square foot of similar properties. So I thought that was interesting because I would not have believed that. So they have been very diligent about getting increases consistently over the last several years, and it's certainly paid off. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, and the minor reports. Back in December, we did a resolution. We didn't do a resolution of appreciation. We did a letter of appreciation to Mary Sue Weinog for her service on the Tourism Council. It really needs to be a resolution of appreciation, not a letter. I'd like to entertain a motion for a resolution of appreciation to Miss Mary Sue Weinog for her time on the Tourism.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. The letter that we signed or approved at the last meeting about the transition letter to FDOT will be on the February agenda to the Sunrail Board. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And then this past Saturday, I went to the Boomba Sports event for Boomba Cares event, and I was amazed on not just the amount of citizen participation, but the athletes that Boomba brought to Seminole County. Boomba Cares.
Not Boomba.
Excuse me?
Perfect game, not Boomba.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Perfect Game. Yeah, it was amazing what they brought. I mean, there were so many athletes. It was just amazing. So kudos to the staff members that were very involved in it, and also to Perfect Game for doing that. Staff sent out an email regarding a joint work session for the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners and the Public School Board, as well as the Seminole State. We're waiting for everyone's response. I think that went out either first thing this morning or yesterday, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of that. It's in your inbox. Next thing, I'd like to have a quick discussion or a lengthy discussion, however you board members want to talk about it, regarding the courthouse. I know that we picked a design team, which is architects and engineers. We also picked an owner's rep, which is PMA. and the design team is doing hard bid and specs for the courthouse, and I really think that we should be looking at CEMAT risk. It reduces our exposure, and just wanted to know if the board have any input on that, because I really believe when you do a renovation of that type, you really want to do CEMAT risk. I believe it's not too late, because the plans haven't been done. They're only in the process of doing programming. You normally pick your CEMAT risk team, if you're going to go that route, sometime during schematic design. Schematic design will be happening in the springtime, and I think it's, if we act now, we can still use this time to do that, and it'll pay dividends as we move forward. Doing CEMAT risk instead of hard bid will reduce our change orders and provide a better team atmosphere and provide a better number for the cost of that project. And I just wanted to have a dialogue with the board members to discuss that. Commissioner Zimbauer.
You don't have to convince me about CEMAT risk. We don't have to look too far back in history to see how long we struggled to get things out of this building on the 5 points to start with. As long as it's done early enough in the phases so that the architects and the others are working hand in hand, so that we prevent those change orders. If we don't, then we will have those change orders. You know, we kicked off the 5 points episode. First, we hired a design team and a review team, and we took the low bidder, which then we had a change order for $400,000, then another change order for $100,000. And then we went to a design build, and I think, you know, Mr. Abel may be able to speak to that, some of the things that we hit early in that process of what we felt certain documents said and required with specifications, what the contractor felt. The remodeling project, I think, is a much more sensitive issue from the standpoint of you've got to have input from the judges. There's going to be folks that are in that building now that are going to move over to the annex. I think your CEMAT risk is the way to go. Having those experts who are in that business today, working hand in hand to at least get to, you know, a 30% or something to get a hard bid at that point. If not, you're going to design it, throw it out to construction on a hard bid, we're going to get a hard bid, and then when we go to build it, they're going to say, well, we can't get this material, or that wasn't bid right, and then we're going to sit down and fight amongst our staff, the contractor, and cause us more money, in my opinion.
Commissioner Herr?
So you all have been part of this planning forever, 20 years. Why now? So what is the genesis for the change? Where did the idea come from?
Can I answer that?
And what are you looking for from us right now with very little information?
Well, I know you all may need some more information, obviously. I know we picked a design team to do hard bids. I know we picked the owner's rep, and I've been asking staff when we're going out to put out on the street the RFQ or the RFP for CEMAT risk, and I've been told that we're not doing that. We're doing a hard bid, and if that was the intention of this board, I was not aware of that. I may have missed that. But I also believe that when you do CEMAT risk, it does take place when you bring those people on at the 30% level or at the schematic design level. So I was under the impression that was going to happen all along. And then I've been informed by the county manager and his staff that, no, we're going out to hard bid. And so I can't speak to you all outside this public forum. So this is the appropriate time for me to speak to you all. I think that we should all be briefed, and we should be making a decision. Should it be a hard bid, or should it be CEMAT risk? I think that in order to reduce our exposure for a renovation, I think that CEMAT risk is the right way to go. I think once you go to hard bid, there will be change orders, especially with the level of detail that that courthouse is going to be needing. When I heard that we were going out for design services, I had every intention that it was, in my mind, it would be a CM at Risk. And normally, they pick the CM at Risk contractor after they pick the design team. It's not the same time. Commissioner Lockhart.
So I'd like some folks that helped to guide us in the original process that didn't recommend that we do CM at Risk for the remodel. I'd like to have them maybe come back. I don't think that now is the appropriate time.
I know that. Great.
I think we need to better understand the timeline of what decisions this board has already made and what if we're changing direction in some way, shape, or form, help us to understand why we would be changing that direction, why that wasn't presented to us in the first place, if it's not the right choice. You know, I've participated in lots of CM at Risk projects, mostly schools or buildings where you have a format and a formula, and you know that you've got, this is what you're building, and it's coming out of the ground, and it's all pretty much cookie cutter. A remodel is not that.
No.
So I would like to understand from our team of experts in procurement and going out for projects like this, what their advice would be and how they
So-
would recommend we
If
to
there's
look at
no
that.
objection, I'd like to be able to put this on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like there's more questions than answers.
Yeah, I don't know that I want this on the agenda. I think I want to better understand where we are already in the process for some of these, because if we put this item on the agenda, we're sending a message that we're changing course in some things.
I'm trying to
I
get
think.
everyone on the same page, and if it's hard for me to brief people, I can't speak to you all. Staff has to do that, and
But why are we even doing this now? I'm with Commissioner Herr. I don't understand.
because what happens is that normally you pick your CM at Risk contractor after you pick your design team and after you pick your owner's rep. That's normally what you do.
I'll tell you what my concern is, if it without bringing any value or help.
Hear it?
Well, my concern is 5 Points is scheduled to be done spring of '23. We're knocking on spring of '22. Go back and look at the timeline it took us to get a hard bid out the door and someone qualified and hired to move forward for 5 Points to start with. Now we're talking a remodel where we have judges that we have to juggle and still run a court and all these things. As CM at Risk, and I'm going to preface this right out of the box, I'm not making any allegations, I'm not saying anybody knows or doesn't know. Back when we did 5 Points, I had asked the then county manager, could you bring experts in from the industry to help make sure all of us understand the difference between CM at Risk, hard bid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that we all would have a clear understanding. And there's also a situation where if you're going to bring a CM at Risk, bringing them in after the fact, you might as well go to a hard bid. So I don't necessarily disagree with the time constraints. We should have, if we were going to be doing this remodeling, and in my understanding what's going on in the industry and the timelines for the remodel, we should have already had somebody in the saddle in anticipation for the completion of 5 Points, which is going to be just a little over a year. And I don't know that the remodel bid process, hiring somebody, getting it done can happen when that move begins to happen in the spring of '23.
Well, the spring of '23 is for the annex building, not for the
Not for all of
courthouse.
5 Points.
Correct. I say the annex, I'm talking about one of 5 Points annex. And that's when folks are going to move out of the existing place over to the new place.
Correct.
And when the remodel is supposed to begin. So that's I've never been a fan. If you go back and look at the cost we spent for the study and then hiring somebody and everything that's taken place, in my opinion, we spent over $1 million+ we should not have had to spend, should have spent. So I'm happy to
So were these
hear it.
3 to
Let's do it.
2 vote? Like what? I
somewhere.
guess I'm going to have to go back and listen to all these old board meetings where
Yeah.
these decisions were made.
Well, a lot of these
because-
were work sessions too, by the way.
Oh, great.
Because we work session like 5 points several times.
So, Mr. Abel, what would be the best way to bring the board members up to speed?
My recommendation would be is that allow staff to go back and, as painful as it may be, relive the last couple years of this process, and pull the information and the decision points that were made throughout the process, for one, clarification of when decisions were made and what decisions were made, and maybe even what those were based on, and bring that information back to you, because I can tell you that as we go back and confirm or identify what it was, I believe this board had given direction on what they anticipated happening as we move forward. That's why when the chairman makes reference to, I had told him and the Public Works Director told him that it was not our intention to do CM at risk, was because the direction of the board previous was that because there were so many unknowns that we wanted to go through the design process and then bid out what we had more confirmation on through the process. I don't have a specific preference one way or the other. I rely on John Dredge, our Public Works Director, and his team of experts to tell us what they recommend. But I think the best route to try to help put something in front of you is to go back and see what decision points were made, when they were made. And of course, that does not preclude the board from changing its mind and its direction at any point, as we have done in the past. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Zimbow?
It sounds like if we've given direction, my question is, do we have any documents that were given to this board to review as that process has moved forward?
Yeah, and I will.
Because we don't have a design yet, unless somebody tells me we've already got a design.
We just now are.
They're in programming.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll do that. Thank you, John. John, we don't need to, unless the board wants to hear from John.
I would love to hear from John.
He's the one we just said is our expert we're relying on, so.
It's just in unison.
For the record, John Dredge, Public Works Director, County Engineer. That process started, about probably 3 years ago with the CGL. And at that time, the conversation going about design build for those new construction. And because for the courthouse renovation, because the lack of information on the existing, it was to go is have a prepare at the designs and hard bid. We selected the group for the design. The same group they did the annex building. So they have all those connections with the stakeholders. They already started coordinating with the stakeholder. We have also the board selected PMA to oversee the design group, the architect group, to make sure. And also PMA, they oversee the annex. So both teams, they oversee the annex building, and they oversee what going on in the 5 point. And they already had a meeting with all the stakeholders, is the design underway, and I'm confident we will have a great set of plan to put out to bed. Now, if the commissioner, after we prepare the plan, the architect plan, and go over through all the exercise, we have a good plan. They want to go and put it as a CMR, that's fine. We need the direction. But a change order, you're going to have a change order sometime in any method you use. And really, what you have today, those two groups, you're not going to be able to pick up better group than those. They already has the experience, the materials that will be used for the annex building, they will probably apply it the same way, and all this constraint from the market today, they will learn about it from the annex and apply it to the courthouse. But that was those decisions. We selected the architect, brought it to the board. The board selected the architect. Also, we brought to the commission, selected PMA to review the architect to make sure we have, and also review it not only from the quality and coordinate with the stakeholders, review it from as a permitting. That will be the permitting agency, so we can expedite the process because building department is overwhelming with a schedule. That's where we are today. Whatever the wish of the board, the staff, we can.
And the conversation I've had with staff is that this would be the time you bring on a contractor for CM at risk, because they're the ones that are going to be building it to understand truly what the marketplace is. PMA is good, as well as the design team, but they truly don't have a finger on the pulse of the market because they don't deal with the contractors and the subcontractors. A general contractor does.
It is true, but the same team today is dealing with the design build with the current annex, the same thing. Secondly, it is for the process, and I have a Mark who will speak to that about the process to bring the contractor on board. It'll take about 8 months process. What we discussed yesterday. If we're gonna, because we have to advertise for the CMAR, and we have to select them and sign a contract, and probably they estimated, we talked to the purchase, they estimated it would be around November. That's where we are today. As money-wise, when you have a CMR and you're already paying for this, cost money, yes, will be more, it'll cost you more. You're going to have a change order. You could have a change order either way. It is up to.
Commissioner Zimbauer.
I have two questions. One's for the county attorney, and maybe for Joe. The PMA contract, who's our rep on the current process that's going on in the annex, is their scope inclusive of the remodel?
Yes, sir. We have a new agreement with them.
Yeah, right.
That includes that.
Okay. And that includes all the fire stations?
No.
No.
Okay. Just the annex and the remodel?
Yeah, well, the chilling plant, everything
just
that we're doing here right now, yes.
No, I got it.
Everything that we're doing at 5 points right now.
Everything at 5 points?
At this
All
point.
inclusive?
Yes.
Okay. My next question is, John, do you believe there are more change orders with having a CM at risk in the saddle with the design team and architect right up front, or waiting till the design is done and the architect gives us a set of plans, whatever it might be, and then the contractor goes to hard bid to come in to build to that design and then tells us, yeah, well, that architectural design's great, it's awesome, but
okay,
we can't do it for this price.
Here's the way I look at it. We picked up 2 teams, and I hope they're a great team. Both of them is the architect. They're already on 5.1. They already, it is more knowledgeable, and you have more knowledge about the annex. This interior, they are more knowledgeable dealing with the stakeholder. They dealt with the on the annex, and they will, and then now they're dealing on the what I call it on the courthouse. Now, now if you have somebody pick up off the street that not have the knowledge and about what we're doing in the annex, because what you're going to have the annex in the courthouse interior, pretty much is going to be very similar, because we have the same stakeholder and all. And I'm hoping that will create, and I expect it to create, a great set of plan, will minimize the change order. Now you go see, and renovation, even when you have a CMAR, there are walls when you start doing construction, it's going to be something unforeseen. And hopefully
sure.
So, and also be change order, and now depend on the contractor. Some contractors, they take advantage of change order, whether it's a CMAR or the hybrid. But I'm hoping because of the situation, specific situation with the courthouse, and those, and the prior experience of those two consultants on the annex and everything else, that will minimize it. For me to tell you, hey, will be 2 change order CMR, or will be 2 change order or so, I don't know, because sometimes.
I get it. I'm not looking for numbers.
Right, yes, but.
Just costs.
Right, but the situation today, I think, that's my personal opinion, with the group we have, we are in good hand. But again, we can regroup and go a different way if the wishes of the board.
Understood. Thank you.
It's up to the board. I mean, I'm only one vote here.
That's
and
what
I can tell you that CMIT risk alleviates or eliminates a lot of those conflicts. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I think there's some unanswered questions in my mind that we need to address. I'd like to have some more information.
How would you like that information delivered to you?
Well, I'll pull my own contracts. I got copies of them in my office, so
Briefings.
I'll share them.
Okay.
Happy to share them with everybody.
Everybody just rather have briefings.
I would prefer briefings, yes.
I just want to make sure. Okay. That's the end of my report. We'll go to item number 38. There's a future agenda item that Commissioner Zimbow is asking for, which is Vision Zero.
Make a motion to put it on the future agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Is this a presentation that you're
Yes,
putting on the
it's just an
agenda?
FDOT
It's not it's not something for us to make
Decide
a decision
on. No,
about? It's a
no.
presentation? Okay.
And who's going to be doing the presentation?
Lorraine Bobo
Lorraine.
from FDOT.
Okay. And do we need staff input or participation with it, or just Lorraine's doing all
I
of
mean,
it?
they can watch the presentation
Just
as
ask
well.
me a question.
I mean, if
We can work with her to schedule the
if it's
presentation.
something,
All right, let's call the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. This time we'll go to public comments.
Lawrence Stepney.
who's been patiently waiting most of the
Appreciate
day.
your patience.
It's been a long meeting. My name's Lawrence Steffi. I'm at address 2166 Sussex Road, Winter Park. Actually, I'm the president of the Winter Woods Homeowners Association. We have
Which
182
homeowners association?
Winter Woods.
Okay.
The subdivision, we're in District 4. The subdivision is just to the southwest side of the intersection of Howell Branch Road and 436, so we're way down on the south side. And I've been very impressed. This is the first time I've sat through one of these meetings, and I appreciate the intelligence and the discussion going on here. We've got a trash pickup issue. I've been in contact with, Ms. Lockhart's office a couple of times about this. This has been going on since 2020. They come through and they only pick up half the neighborhood on Tuesday, and then they come through Wednesday morning and pick up the rest. And it's been going on intermittently for about 2 years now. And unfortunately, we have an individual in our neighborhood who's made it a hobby of going through and cutting in trash bags and leaving a mess. And sometimes it's so bad that the trash pickup company won't pick it up again after it's been cut into. Now, I understand also that you've heard about these issues previously. There's very little you can do about it at this point in time. Based on my research, I'm understanding that when you let these contracts out, and we were initially advanced disposal, and I understand that's been bought by Waste Management. And these contracts go out for 10 years, and I think we're 3 or 4 years into a 10-year contract. The problem is it seems like nobody's got any control over these waste pickup companies. We complain about it, we try and get things done, and the same problem keeps happening over and over again. So all I could suggest at this point in time, I guess we're going to have to deal with it. Maybe somebody can call them.
So the gentleman right back here, Terry McHugh, he's in charge of our solid waste.
Okay.
He manages those contracts. I think you need to get hold of Terry. You two need to talk.
All right.
Because we do manage those contracts, and if they don't perform, there's penalties involved. Commissioner Lockhart?
Well, so this isn't the only community in my district that's having a similar issue. And I know that the folks in environmental services have been trying, as Shaquille Balroot has been talking with the communities, I think, for the most part. It seems like there's an intent on the part of the haulers always to fix it. They never pass the threshold of being in a situation where where there's a penalty. The penalty threshold is higher than what we're seeing in these communities, but it doesn't mean that the communities aren't suffering poor service. And so when it's bad enough to be bad service, but not bad enough to be a penalty, that's probably where our conversation needs to go at some point. But I would defer to Dr. McHugh if he has anything he'd like to add.
And, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Constantine?
No, please come on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, and this is ongoing in every district. If I made a survey of the complaints that I get, the greatest amount of complaints is with trash pickup. And I mentioned to our county manager today about even there's been 2 days in a row in the Orlando Sentinel where where they're complaining, and they're complaining about Seminole County trash pickup.
Who do y'all have for a carrier in your district?
We have both. I have both. It's split between Waste Management and Waste Pro. And then we're even complaining about the recycling today. So I'm sympathetic, but and the same thing. I mean, I got 2 calls yesterday from people that did not get their trash picked up, and so Mr. McHugh,
Let's hear from Mr. McHugh.
Yeah.
Right. For the record, Terry McHugh, Director, Environmental Services Department. I mean, yes, these are challenging times dealing with solid waste. We have, as you know, in the industry, it's hard to find drivers, and it's especially challenging for municipalities. And our operational protocols have been such that we're not able to accommodate all garbage like we used to at the transfer station, and we divert some garbage to the landfill once we reach our capacity based on our staffing levels. And that extends service times.
But can we get to the question at hand
I
about
think he's
pickup?
trying to tell us what the real problem is. I think it's what I'm hearing.
Hire staff.
I haven't heard it yet.
Can't get
Staffing
employees and they can't get
shortages.
drivers.
Well, it sounds like we're having to force the haulers to go a much further distance, which takes more of their time, which then takes them away from the routes. If I'm not, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, we're making them not go to the. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think Mr. McHugh is the right man to be involved, and he probably needs to tell us what he needs.
Well, we've been working with county management. We actually have 5 interviews for drivers tomorrow. And we've been authorized to make competitive offers to try and bring these people on board to help with these issues.
Okay. I think we understand.
So can we get a report back on that at the next meeting?
Sure can.
Maybe we just need to keep this at the top of our radar until it gets resolved.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
because,
I'm not getting complaints from citizens about waste pickup, I'm getting complaints from haulers about this situation.
What I've just
So-
heard from this gentleman standing next to you, the president of the HOA, is that he's hearing that the complaint is that people are someone is destroying the trash bags and littering the streets so the trash can't get picked up. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that's part of it. That happens occasionally all the time. And we've been in contact with the sheriff's office, and they say, once it gets down beyond the curb, it's abandoned property. So as far as they're concerned, they can't do anything with it. So a person can get in and do anything they want to, but obviously it leaves a mess for the homeowner, and the longer it's on the street, if they miss the day, then they've got an additional 24 hours to play games with it, and so it becomes more of a problem.
Yeah.
I think it's, what I'm hearing is twofold. It's that unique situation because of a resident that is a bad actor. And then you also have the situation of entire sides of streets not being picked up or entire parts of neighborhoods not being picked up. The hauler was in the neighborhood. They were there. They just didn't take the extra time to finish picking up the cans on the other side of the street. That's not our staffing issue. That's not our staffing issue.
Well, it could be if you give me a little latitude.
Well, I'd rather give him the latitude.
Okay, go ahead.
Since it's his operation.
Terry?
Our operation of the landfill is posing our haulers difficulties, so that is a big part of the problem.
So the question would be, in this scenario, and I don't know what the situation is with that hauler, but I understand it's pretty much on the Orange County border, pretty close to Orange County, and I would suspect there may be some overlap. But that said, do you perceive with what you understand that's going on with the haulers, that they can't go to the transfer station or have to be diverted all the way to the landfill? Does that impact their day by 1 hour, 2 hours? I would say it's a 2-hour round trip to the landfill if you got to be diverted there. And how they get back to, maybe they've got a full truck and they've got to dump it. Maybe they go to the transfer station and then they're diverted off. I don't know how many hours that could take, but do you have a handle for that, or?
The haulers would have more detailed information, but I would guess, if it's 30 minutes there and back from transfer station, so it's an hour at least, plus time to dump. So yes.
Right.
So Terry, do you believe if you were able to hire these more people that this issue would go away or be slowly corrected?
Yes.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, if I can.
Sure.
But this is not a problem that just started. So therefore, I can't just say it's all our fault. I truly believe that, I've been getting calls consistently over the last 3 years from citizens that are saying their garbage hasn't been picked up on that particular day. So, at the same time, we're looking at internal, and I think that's wonderful that we're doing that, and looking at our core problem. I think also the discussion needs to be made with the haulers. Hey, we've got a problem here about pickup, and what are you also going to do about it? And what can we do to improve the service?
So Terry, can you meet with this gentleman? I forget your first name, I'm sorry. Larson. And actually get him with Shaquille?
Yes.
And try to figure out what the fix is and how we can start, and keep us all informed about this issue?
Yes,
So
sir.
in case we need to take further action, we can, and work through the county manager?
Yes, sir.
Any objection to that?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that okay, sir?
That's fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
And we're
patience.
sorry we made you sit here all day long to tell us about your garbage problem.
Shaney, you have any other written requests? Anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak to the board at this time for any future agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Any closing comments from the board? I have one. Happy birthday.
Hey.
Your birthday's coming up this week. Just want to say happy birthday.
Thank you. 40 again.
Perfect.
I knew she was trying to forget that.
This meeting is now adjourned.
You don't look a day over.